Wednesday show. Wednesday show. Wednesday show. I don't know if you can hear me or if you're even there. I don't know if you can hear the little Brent Dodge here. We're on episode 850, which is quite a big number. So if you're in the cold now, turn the show on and then say brrr. Hello, everybody. Like we got a few people who are on that are just not chatting right now. How's everybody doing out there? Hopefully everyone's doing pretty darn well. So today is our 850th episode of the Wednesday show. And we have a poll in the chat room right now on which topic you guys want to do. Right now, it's showing that we do have a few people on, but no one is commenting and no one's interacting with the poll either. Come on, people. This comes down to you. Maybe not. I don't know. We'll find out on the next episode of the Wednesday show. So today we're going to do one of these topics. No one's talking. Right now it's showing that we got 8 people in the chat room with not a single one of them talking. Are you guys out there? Hello, is this working? 9 people. 9. So I'll just sit here and gab away for an hour, which I do in my free time anyways, but this time I can talk to a camera, so it looks like I'm not crazy. So like I said, we do have a poll going on right now. It also just went from 9 to 1 people in the chat room, so I don't know what's going on. We might be having some technical difficulties out there. I am not sure. Now it says 12 people are in the chat room, so I don't know. This is kind of crazy. Okay, so yeah, we'll go through. We're gonna kind of go through and do one of these topics, hopefully. Otherwise, we're just going to be sitting here. I'm just going to be freeballing it for an hour like a crazy person. All right, so let's get this party started. We're going to start the 850th. It's a huge number. 850th episode of the Wednesday show in 5, 4. Oh, we got people in the chat room talking. It went from 14 people to 2 people now in the chat room. So I don't know what's going on with the chat room stuff, but hopefully things are okay. But we're going to start the 850th episode of the Wednesday show in 5, 4, 3, 2. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 850th episode of the Wednesday show. Today is December 3rd, 2025, and I'm your host, as always, Brent Dodge. Hello. We are finally, not finally, but we are in our final month of 2025, which is absolutely insane. Has this year... Is it just me, or does this year seem like it went by really quickly? And I know people always say that about every year, and sometimes I feel it, sometimes I don't. Just like sometimes you feel like a nut, sometimes you don't. But yeah, this is our 850th episode. But yeah, I feel like the year 2025 has gone by insanely quickly, and it's kind of crazy, it's kind of scary, and it's been a good year. We're going to be doing our recap episode in about 4 weeks, right? Yeah, in 4 weeks. We'll be doing it maybe in 3 weeks. That'll be Christmas. And in 4 weeks, wait a minute. Okay. So we're just going to be talking here for a second. So, by the way, I'm host Brent Dodge, blah, 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 blah. We'll talk about it after our news. So, let's do our news real quick. First off, thank you everyone out there who's been joining us for our Saturday in the Park. You already know every single Saturday at 1 o'clock Eastern Time, we do a live broadcast from someplace small throughout the Walt Disney World Resort. You never know where we'll be coming to you from live, but I promise you we will always be coming to you live from Disney. So make sure you join us every single Saturday at 1 o'clock Eastern Time for all the Disney fun. Also, as always, tonight's episode is sponsored by our Patreon pals. If you're one of our Patreon pals out there, give us an all right, and while we do the final vote there, let's talk about this real quick, because this year has been messing with my brain, because part of me feels like it went really quickly, while another part of me feels like it took forever. Now, I was talking to someone the other day, and we were talking about the Dopey challenge that happened earlier this year, which I'm wearing right now. This is not actually planned at all. I just happen to be wearing this right now. And we were talking about Dopey Challenge, and we are talking about how the next one is literally like 4 weeks from now. And it's just kind of crazy because I feel like the Dopey Challenge was so long ago, but at the same time, it wasn't that long ago at all, if that makes sense at all. I don't know. I feel like 2025 has been a rapid pace from start to finish to getting us to where we are right now. But okay, so this is going to be our lineup for the rest of the year. Tonight, we're going by whatever you guys vote on. Right now, it looks like we're going to be doing a history lesson, and we'll go through and we'll figure out exactly which history lesson you guys want to go through. After we go through tonight's episode, let's pull up our little calendar here. Next week, we're probably going to do a holiday episode. Now, that holiday episode will probably be focused on things like maybe Christmas movies, like things like The Muppet Christmas Carol, Mickey's Christmas Carol, and those are the only two Christmas movies that are worth mentioning. No, there's going to be more. The following week, we'll probably be having it, so we're going to be doing some sort of special episode as well, Christmas themed. And then the 24th, so New Year's, or not New Year's Eve, Christmas Eve, maybe we'll do a special in the park episode, or maybe we will do a recap of the year episode then. And then on the 31st, which will be New Year's Eve, obviously, on New Year's Eve, we will most definitely be doing an in the park episode because I will be bringing in the new year, most likely at Epcot, but I might be at one of the other parks because it's been a while since I've gone to the other parks on New Year's Eve, but most likely Epcot. So yeah, that's kind of our we got only 5 weeks left, including the one that we're on right now, of the Wednesday show, which is absolutely insane. Let's take a look at our starting numbers for the night too, because we usually do that and we did not do that tonight. Our start is 9,061 subscribers. So send a friend or two or a lot more, and we'll kind of go through from there and figure this out. Also, while we're actually on that topic, let's take a look at this because we've been talking about the year, and I think there's a way for me to do this for the year. Yes, there is. Okay, let's take a look at this right here. Just because I like stats. I am a nerd. These are our stats for the whole year. We started way down here and we've gone up here. So we started right around 8.1 thousand. So we've gone up about 1,000 numbers in the year 2025. My goal is still to hit 10,000 by the end of the year. I know it's a long shot, but at the same time, I say we go for it. All right. So let's get to it. We're going to be doing a history episode based off of the vote in the chat room. We're going to do one more vote. We're going to have it so you guys are going to vote on what type of history lesson you would like to have tonight. or how about give me a suggestion in the chat room. What do you guys want to have a history lesson about tonight? We haven't done a history lesson for a while, and I really like doing history lessons. Again, nerd. And so whatever, if you guys have something in the chat room that I know I could go on for the next 50 minutes about, we'll go through yours. Whether it's a history lesson about the history of Magic Kingdom from 1971 until now, or the history lesson, I'm interested in maybe abandoned Disney projects or movies. Can we do a history lesson about that? You know what? Let's start off with that. Let's start off with a little bit of a history lesson. All right. About abandoned projects and or movies. Can we do this? We can. So there have been a lot of abandoned projects and movies throughout the years. I do like this topic. I'm just trying to figure out exactly how we're going to connect the dots. Connect the dots was our second running up. I'm just trying to figure out how we're going to connect the dots on the different topics that I had going on in my head. But let's start off with abandoned ideas. Now, let's go back to the year 2013. Now, in 2013, I went to the D23 Expo. While I was at the D23 Expo, they talked about all these cool upcoming projects that were going on. And some of the projects were amazing. There was one project that I was insanely excited for because they went through in so much detail about this movie, and they showed us the voice cast. They had some of the voice cast come out. And overall, I was like, this is going to be the greatest movie I've ever seen in my life. Now, if you do not know, I do like dinosaurs a lot. Not just because of my book, a closer look at the Animal Kingdom's Dinoland USA. However, you can buy that now on Kindle. But I also have always liked dinosaurs since I was a little kid. I mean, The Land Before Time came out right when I was a toddler, and so it just makes sense that I grew up with dinosaurs, and I've always just had a love for dinosaurs, especially Brontosaurus. It's my favorite dinosaur, mainly due to the fact that Land Before Time, followed closely by Pterodactyl. So in 2013, during the D23 Expo, they went through and they announced this brand new movie that Pixar was working on called The Good Dinosaur. I know what you're thinking. But they released The Good Dinosaur. You are correct, sir, or miss, depending on who you are. You are correct. But The Good Dinosaur was not the Good Dinosaur that they pitched to us in that movie theater, in that expo hall. During the expo hall, they would go through and they would talk about how it was going to star Neil Patrick Harris. Now, if you like things like How I Met Your Mother, like I love How I Met Your Mother, then you know that that's just going to get you excited. Neil Patrick Harris, huge Disney fan, huge just presence in everything he does. It was Neil Patrick Harris and several other actors that were just all insanely popular people. Now, the entire idea of The Good Dinosaur was going to be a asteroid misses the Earth and dinosaurs live to the time of us. And also it was going to be dinosaurs and humans living in the same time zone, but not way back in the days of the cavemen, but actually in more modern times instead. This idea was amazing to me. It kind of reminded me of We're Back Again, a 1990s Pixar, or not Pixar film, 1990s dinosaur film. That was a cartoon. It wasn't the greatest, but it was okay. And it featured dinosaurs in New York City. And it kind of reminded me of that concept, but the fact that this time around, the dinosaurs just never went extinct. And I got extremely excited. I thought this was going to be one of the greatest movies of all time. And then a few months beforehand, they scrapped the entire premise of the movie. They scrapped the entire voice cast of the movie. And they ended up with The Good Dinosaur movie that we all know and hate today. It is my least favorite Pixar film of all time. So they did abandon it. They still went through and finished the film, but they did abandon the film. Another film that they actually got rid of in recent years was Gigantic. Now, Gigantic was going to be a tale of Jack and the Beanstalk, all about the giant that lives up at the top of the beanstalk. And it was going to be a great little Disney animated film that we were all going to know and love in the near future. However, after working on it for several months, they unfortunately scrapped it. There is still a reference to it found in the movie Zootopia. If you go and watch Zootopia towards the end of the film, Duke Weaselton in that film. Duke Weaselton is going through and he's selling all those different DVDs, and the different DVDs are play on words of different Disney animated films, and one of them is Giraffic as a play on for Gigantic, or Gigantic, I can't remember what it is, but it is a play on words for the Gigantic film, which was scrapped as well. Now, if we want to go through and talk a little bit about some of the abandoned Disney projects that were parks or theme parks or rides or all that other fun stuff, let's get to it, because we have had several different things throughout the ages that have been coming and going and disappearing. And there's one of them, though, that we can spend quite a bit of time on. So let's go to that. While we go through and talk about this one, if you guys have any other ideas in the chat room, throw them to the comments below, and we will go through and answer any and all of those questions as we go through here. But back in the 1980s, Disney was a powerhouse. They were rebuilding everything. Animation was starting to take off again at the end of the 1980s, with The Little Mermaid being released in 1989. Shortly before that, we had brand new theme parks in the forms of Epcot, Tokyo Disney, and Disney MGM Studios. And then in addition to that, we had it so Touchstone became a thing. We had movies like Splash. We're making a splash on the big screen. Everything that Disney was doing, they were doing correctly. So the Imagineers came up with a new idea. While they were working on other projects like Disneyland Paris, at that point it was known as Euro Disneyland, while they were going through, or Euro Disney, while they were going through and working on these new projects, they had a few other ideas that were in the back of their head. Now, they were thinking about a third park destination found in America. I know what you're thinking. Wait a minute. What are you talking about? Because there's only two spots still to this day in America. You are correct. Okay, so up until let's say 1992. So in 1992, we have Euro Disney opens up. A few years before that, well, 1983, we had Tokyo Disney open up. So now we have two international locations. In addition to those two, in 1955, obviously we had Disneyland, and in 1971, we had Disney World. So at this point, there are four different locations around the world that guests can go to experience a Disney park. In those four different locations, if you wanted to, you could go to one park over in Disneyland, three parks now here in Disney World, and then in Tokyo, we had one park, and in Paris, we had one park as well. So you can go through and you could experience a lot of different Disney parks all around the world. So the Imagineers started to try to figure out, okay, we want to focus on new ideas, and what kind of new ideas can we focus on that are going to draw bigger crowds? And the Imagineers kind of pitched a few different ideas, and one of them just made the most sense. So they said, let's build our third theme park in America. So Disney did what they did here in Florida. They started to go through and they started to purchase up a lot of different land. Now, a lot of the land that they purchased, no one knew who was buying the land. It just kind of remained a secret for quite some time. And as they started to buy land, people started to question things, much like they did in Florida. Who on earth is buying up all this land, and what are they buying up all this land for? Now, in order for us to kind of go forward, we have to kind of talk about exactly where this location is and what the idea was going to be. So the idea was a theme park called Disney's America. Whoa! I know you're thinking, okay, doesn't sound too great. Well, Disney's America was going to take guests into the American experience from back into the time when the Pilgrims sailed across the ocean blue back in 1492, all the way through the Industrial Revolution, up and through the Industrial Revolution. And while they're going through, they're going to have different theme park attractions. They're going to have things like riding the plane with the Wright brothers. They're going to have it so you can go through and reenact the Civil War. There are all these different things. And of course, it just made sense to have it located right outside of Washington, D.C. So the idea was Disney's America was going to be the next big Disney park. They had plans for the park. In addition to that, they also had plans for a few different resorts that would be around the area. Now, when people started to get wind that Disney was going through and trying to make up this brand new theme park, they weren't too happy. And the reason they weren't too happy was because it was right down the street from an old Civil War grounds. And they said, you can't have it so you are talking about the Civil War and having people go through and ride roller coasters right by where people actually died in these wars. It is not a good thing for the history, and it's not a good thing for Disney. And a lot of people started to give backlash to Disney and said, we do not want Disney inside of Washington, D.C. It's not right. They have to go. So Disney decided that what they should do is continue going through. So they continue to work on this plan in project in private. And while they're going through and working on this project in private, a lot of different people started to pick up the idea that they were still working on this plan. So a lot of people started to do protests outside of the grounds of where it would be at. Now, keep in mind, there was no construction going on quite yet. It was all behind the scenes. There was Imagineers that were working in Burbank, California, trying to figure out exactly what the layout was going to be of the different parks. Overall, it was an amazing thing. Now, let's see if we can actually find I know there is images. Disney's America concept art. Ooh. Okay. Here we go. We're going to share this right here. Because this, my friends, was the concept art for Disney's America. Look at it. Isn't that amazing? So they're going to have it so there was going to be different sections all around the area. There's going to be a Liberty Square because they already knew how to make the Liberty Square. And they're going to have it so all these different areas would be taking guests through the history of America. Now, if you look at the very back, you can see like that ocean line steamer. That ocean line steamer was going to have it so it would be part of the Industrial Revolution. And while they're going through, you would go through on roller coasters. You would have it so there was interactive things. It was kind of like, and I don't think this is going to hit with anyone here. It was kind of like Old World Wisconsin. And I know you're thinking, what on earth is Old World Wisconsin? Old World Wisconsin was one of the craziest places and the craziest experiences that a fifth grader in Wisconsin could ever go through. Now, let's see if we can find Old World Wisconsin. Is there any pictures? Old World Wisconsin. Oh, yeah, we've got pictures. Wait, do we? I want pictures that are not of those people. This is the picture we want right here. No, wait, where did that picture go? This is the picture right here. Okay, so this is Old World Wisconsin. This is what I had to grow up with back in the day. So if you were a kid in Wisconsin, there is a pretty high chance at one point in fifth grade, almost every time it was fifth grade, you would go to this place right here. You would go through, and it was what Wisconsin was like back in the old world. Hence the name Old World Wisconsin. And you would go through and you would learn how it was like, or what was it like to be in an old classroom like these kids are right above me. Or you could go through and figure out what gardening was like the other little girl that's on the side there. What other pictures do we have here? Oh, yeah, you could go through and you could learn about the animal breeds and wagon works. And this is a real place. I went here. I vividly remember it. I remember this really well right here. So anyways, you'd go through Old World Wisconsin. So the idea of Disney's America was going to be similar to Old World Wisconsin. You were going to go through and there was going to be these kind of living through history. Excuse me. Living through history pieces where you would go through and see exactly what life was like back in the old world. Now, the idea of Disney's America kept on plowing forward. The Imagineer said, you know what? We've got a great idea here. It's going to be educational. Now, there's a lot of people who do not go to Disney that do not understand the entertainment / educational values that Disney has often done. However, if you go through the history of Disney, even way back in 1955, when they opened up Disneyland, one of the things that Disney wanted was to have it so when you're walking through Tomorrowland, every single piece of plant work or every plant that was inside that land was edible to show that, hey, in the future, everything is edible. Not everything, but all the plants will be edible so people can go through and they can live off of everything in their area. Excuse me. When you would go on the Jungle Cruise in 1955, you would go through and you would not be going through with a skipper who was telling jokes, but instead you would go through with a skipper who was telling educational facts about the giraffes or the lions or the zebras. It's kind of dull and boring. That's why they switched it to the other skippers. But flash forward. Oh my gosh, I cannot talk tonight. Flash forward to the year 1964. In 1964, Disney started to go through and have the education / entertainment thing going into new heights with Great Moments with Mr. Lincoln, where people could learn all about the history of Abraham Lincoln while also being entertained at the same time. Same thing in 1964 with the Carousel of Progress, where we'd have it so we'd go through the history of electronics while also being entertained. In 1971, when the Magic Kingdom would first open up, we would have yet another history lesson in the form of Liberty Square. And then in 1982, if you wanted to learn about anything, going to Epcot pretty much made you learn anything and everything that you did not want to know before you got there. Whether it was going on to World of Motion, learning all about automobiles, or going to Horizons, learning about the future, or going to Universe of Energy and learning about, you guessed it, energy, going to the Living Seas and learning all about water life, or going to the Land Pavilion and learning about the land. If you went to the 9 countries at that point there were 9, now there's 11, both Morocco and Norway have been added since 1982. You could go around the world and you could learn a little bit more about the different cultures all around the world. All around the world, statues crumble for me. So while you're going through and learning about all this different stuff, it just made sense Then in the 1990s, Disney said, hey, you know what we want to do is we want to have it so we can teach people a little bit more than what we've already taught them in the past. This time around, we're going to teach them all about America. Now, with Disney's America, they had solid ideas. They had great rides. If you've ever read Bob Weiss's book, I can't think of the name of it right now, but he's got this amazing book all about his history as an Imagineer. In it, he goes into full detail about his time working on Disney's America and talks all about kind of the stuff that we've been talking about already. And in this section, he was talking about how they're going to use the educational and entertainment thing. But a lot of people were saying, hey, Disney's all about entertainment, and we want to have it so when people are in Washington, D.C., it should be all educational. Okay, well, if they would have gone to Disney's America, I guarantee everything would have been educational. But the problem was that when you go through and you don't have people who've experienced the Disney parks throughout time, they might not realize what education is actually taking place in the Disney parks. They've more focused on the things that are entertainment-wise, like Space Mountain or Big Thunder Mountain Railroad, and not realize that there's things like the Hall of Presidents or great moments with Mr. Lincoln or any other thing that can go through and teach you a little bit about American history. So because of that, people continue to protest Disney's America. And when those people continue to protest, Disney finally said, oh, excuse me. They finally said, we concede, we will not go through with this plan. If you want to, we will sell you the land back. So Disney gave up the land, they gave up the dream, and unfortunately, in its place was put amusement park. No, there is no amusement park out there. But they did give up the entire area because Disney just said, we don't want to make this many people in America upset with us because of the thing that we're doing. Now, that's Disney's America. There's other things that have also been abandoned Disney projects or movies that never came into fruition. Let's talk a little bit about another one. I'm just trying to think of what another one will be. Does anyone have any questions yet? Or does anyone have any other suggestions on ones that we could talk about? I'm trying to think of another movie that was going to be done that then wasn't done. Because I know there's multiple ones out there. I'm just drawing a blank on all of them right now. When you threw me off when you threw that topic out there. I like the topic a lot. I'm just drawing a blank. It's been a long week, people. It's been a very, very long week. So my job is focused. I mean, obviously it's in Central Florida, so it's focused completely on tourism. And this past week was our busiest week in the history of our store, which has been open for over 20, almost 30 years. It's almost been 30 years since the store opened up. And it was our busiest week ever in the history of those 30 years. So if I seem kind of out of it today, I am. I did not get much sleep I work Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. And by the end of that week, I was exhausted. I absolutely exhausted. And yesterday I got home, or 2 days ago, I got home on Monday night. I got home and I said, I'm just going to sleep until my alarm. I didn't even have an alarm set. I said, I'm just going to sleep until I wake up. My body naturally wakes me up. And my body woke me up like 9.5 hours later. I was like, yes, thank you. And then I got back from the park and I just relaxed and I watched a few movies. And then my watch kept on yelling at me saying that I needed to get some exercise. But at the same time, I was like, I know, I'm so tired. So instead I laid down and I slept and now today I finally have been feeling like a little bit more like myself. And then I have tomorrow off and then I'll go back to it and hopefully not slowly die again. But Thanksgiving week in Disney is always like a crazy, crazy busy time that I don't think many people realize how busy and crazy it can be. Are we having technical problems? We got people who messaged me that I know were watching earlier. No, it's other people. It's a group chat. Okay, so let's continue going through. I'm just completely rambling now about other things. Okay, let's talk a little bit about abandoned. Oh, I got an abandoned project that we should talk about because it's still kind of in use, but it's not completely in use. If that makes sense. Well, it doesn't now, but it will in a few minutes. 2003. So back in 2003, Disney was working on several different projects. The idea is that the parks were getting more and more, or that they're getting busier and busier, was just inevitable. They had it so the travel business was booming, and it just made sense that they're going to go through and start to build a lot of hotels. Now, while they're going through and building these hotels, obviously there was a huge economic crash, and it caused tourism to drop significantly. But in 2003, they opened up a new resort in the form of Pop Century. Now, Pop Century would focus on the 1950s, 1960s, 1970s, 1980s, and then 1990s. Each one of the sections would be a different section of the resort. So in the 1950s, we've got Lady and the Tramp there as our ends. We also have a pool. In that pool, we have it so it looks like a bowling alley. There's different bowling pins all around on the staircases. There's 9 different staircases, so there's 9 bowling pins. And then the last pin is going to be the actual pool down there to make a perfect strike. In addition to that, in the 1960s, we get over to Mowgli and Baloo. We also have it so there is the Hippy Dippy pool. In the 1970s, we get to the giant foosball table. And on top of the foosball table, we also have the giant Mickey and the giant, what's it called? I used to call it Herbie. Big Wheel. In the 1980s, we've got the keyboards, and we also have Roger Rabbit there and the Walkman. And then in the 1990s, we've got a giant laptop computer. Now, the idea of Pop Century was to have it so it wasn't going to focus completely on the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s, but it was also going to focus on the zeros, the 10s, the 20s, the 30s, and the 40s. Now, this idea was going to be in a separate section of the hotel. In 2003, they open up the more modern, the more classic, the more recent years. Now, the idea was we're going to open up this section because we figure it's probably going to be more popular. And because it's going to be so popular, eventually we will open up the second section as well, right across the lake. So if you go across the lake, there was going to be a little bridge there. And in that, across the bridge was going across. Oh my gosh, I can't talk at all. Going across the bridge, you were going across the lake. That lake was going to be known as Hourglass Lake. Now, the fact that it's called Hourglass Lake is because of the fact that you were having it so it's going between different times, hence the Hourglass Lake. When they first built Pop Century, they built one building and one building only, the 1900s building for Pop Century, the classic years. Now, eventually they're going to build the 20s, the 30s, the 40s, and that was it. The zeros, the 10s, 20s, 30s, and 40s. But when they first built the zeros, it was just because they were figuring out exactly where it was going to place with everything else. And the idea was, hey, this Pop Century resort is probably going to be really popular. In about a year or two, we will open up our next resort, which is going to be the classic years, making Pop Century the largest resort on Disney property. Unfortunately, there was an economic crash. Boo. But this economic crash caused something really, really weird to happen. Because sitting across the way, there was a gray building, never themed, for the zeros of Pop Century. And it sat there, and it sat there, and it sat there. It could hold up to many, many guests. There was all the rooms were done. They weren't furnished. They weren't themed, but the rooms were there. And eventually, time started to go by. Disney was not sure exactly what they were going to do with these rooms. They realized that maybe the Pop Century Classic years was not going to be that big of a theme, mainly due to the fact that by the time they started to really come to the idea of what to do, it was now the 2010s. And they said a lot of people who are in the 2010s are not going to really think about the 1900s or the 1910s or the 1920s as much as they would have in 2003, even though in 2003, I don't think many people would have thought about it either. So they started to come up with brand new ideas on what exactly they could do with this building that's just sitting there as a shell of a building. And they came up with a completely different concept. Now, this different concept was having it so that building will still exist, or those 3 buildings would still exist, but be completely rethemed to a brand new resort. So they decided to build 3 additional sections, opposed to the 4 additional sections that they had originally planned. And they had it so those 3 additional buildings or 3 additional sections would consist of 2 buildings each, with the exception of one of them, which would consist of 3 buildings. Now, with these brand new sections, what they would do is instead of having it so it was like the 1950s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s, and the zeros, these buildings would all be enclosed. So all the hallways would be walking through indoor hallways opposed to outdoor hallways like Pop Century was and how the 19 zeros were going to be. Now, while they're going through and coming up with this idea, they decided to give the theming of the old one, the 1900s building, to the theme of Little Mermaid. I think you might know where we're going with this. And then the other 3 buildings were going to be themed around The Lion King, Cars, and Finding Nemo. That's right, Art of Animation. So Art of Animation is only around mainly due to the fact that back in 2003, when Disney was coming up with different ideas, they had an economic crash and they were not sure exactly what to do going forward. And they decided that what they were going to do was just still use that building and retheme it completely. Now, a lot of people have always wondered, why on earth is The Little Mermaid having so all the entrances to the rooms are outside the building opposed to inside like all the other sections? And that's the main reason, is because back in the day, they just had an economic crisis and the building was already built and it was supposed to be a twin to Pop Century. Okay, we are having some major problems with the chat room right now. So I have like a live update that tells me how many people are watching, and it literally keeps on going from like it was 27 earlier, and then it goes down to 2, and then it goes like 21, and then 2, and then 12, and then 3, and then we were at 7, 7, 7, and then all of a sudden it went down to 0, 0, 0, and then it's back at 2. Now it's at 0 again. I don't know what's going on. We might be having some connection problems. I don't know if it's connection problems on my side or other people's side. It's probably on my side. So I do apologize. But I'm going to keep on talking here because we are still going through, and it shows that people are still liking things. So in addition to Pop Century and Art of Animation, let's go on to another abandoned idea. Ooh. Oh, wait. So all other ideas that have been abandoned around the Walt Disney World Resort have been kind of far and few between. Most things have kind of stuck around. There have been things that have been built and then abandoned, like Discovery Island. If you ever know, they're over in Bay Lake area behind the Contemporary. There is a little island out there. And in that island, there used to be a park, kind of a theme park, where guests could go out there by boat and they could go through and learn a little bit about animals. Now, eventually what would happen is in 1998, Disney's Animal Kingdom would open up. And when Disney's Animal Kingdom would open up, they would get rid of that entire area and bring all the animals from Discovery Island over to Disney's Animal Kingdom. And then the central section of Disney's Animal Kingdom would be rethemed to Discovery Island, or be called Discovery Island. Excuse me. Oh my gosh. Okay. We're having the viewership. I don't know what's going on. It's like a roller coaster. Does it tell me on here? It might show me on here. It's just kind of crazy because it'll be like 27 people, and then it's like 0 people. So I'm not sure what's going on. What's going on here? Yeah, on here it says that we have 147 people watching. That's not right at all. Okay. Oh, wait, let's go through it. I'm trying to think of like one more abandoned project. Let's do one more abandoned project before we wrap up tonight's episode. Abandoned Disney projects and or movies. Abandoned projects and or okay. Is that no? That's just. Oh wait, let's talk about no, because that's not abandoned. That's just gone. I was gonna say. No, I'm just like now going through in my head and talking to myself as my numbers keep on popping up. It says we got 72 people watching right now. That's not true. I don't know what's going on, but that's okay. And now it says we got 4 people watching. I think YouTube might be broken right now. Abandoned movies and or projects. I'm trying to think of another. Okay, I got one. This is going to be our final one for the evening. So over at Fort Wilderness Campground and Resort, back in the day, there was oh my gosh, I can't even talk today. Back in the day, there was an attraction that could be found over at Fort Wilderness Campground and Resort in the form of a railroad. This railroad used to be able to take guests all around the the campground. And if you would hop on there, you would just have a grand old time. It did cost money to go on there, which is ironic because, well, we'll get to it in just a few minutes here. But they used to have it so you could go through, you could pay for your ticket, and you could go around the campground at your own leisure. It was a great time to just kind of take your time around. I never had the opportunity to go on this attraction ever. Very, very sad to say. However, as time would go on, they would eventually close it up. Now, when they closed it up, there were still a few remnants of it that would stick around in the Walt Disney World Resort. Number one, a few of the train cars would make their way over to downtown Disney, now known as Disney Springs, but at that point it was known as Downtown Disney. In Downtown Disney, what they would do is they had it so in Pleasure Island. Now, if you remember Pleasure Island was going to be the spot where you go through and you could partay at the different clubs. I personally love the Adventurers Club. I also like the Comedy Club, and I didn't really like anything else. The rest of the thing was not my scene at all. But I did like the Adventurers Club and the Comedy Club. Now, in order to get into Pleasure Island, for quite some time, not all the time, but for quite some time, you had to purchase tickets to get into the area. Now, in order to buy those tickets, you actually had to go to these two different ticket booths, and these two different ticket booths actually looked like train cars. That's because they were train cars. So the two different ticket booths actually were the train cars that used to be found over at Fort Wilderness Campground, and you would go through and purchase your tickets there and then go on in and dance the night away. That's how I dance, and that's why I never liked it. In addition to that, if you still go over to the Fort Wilderness Campgrounds to this day, you can still find the railroad tracks that once existed. They're not completely seen throughout the entire area. However, let's find us on the map here. You know what? Let's do this. Let's pull up a map like this here. Fort Wilderness Campground map. Oh, yeah. Okay. Here's our map. Here's our map. Made from real gorilla map. That turned into the see my vest from whatchamacallit, from The Simpsons. I cannot talk at all today. I apologize. Okay, let's see here. Yes, we've got that up. Okay, so here's our map of Fort Wilderness Campground. Oh my gosh, now it's... There we go. Okay, here's our map of Fort Wilderness Campground. Now, up here on the right-hand side, this is going to be the outpost. This is going to be the location when you get into Fort Wilderness that you can actually like hop on the bus and come down this way. There's going to be a few different trails that you can take, but the main trail is going to be the Fort Wilderness Trail that's down the middle here. Over here is where we have Hoop-de-Doo Review. This is going to be where you can go through and you can see the animals. But if you want to see the railroad used to go all the way around the entire area. And you can go to Loop 700. Now, if you go to Loop 700, right over here, what I usually do is I go to Hoop-de-Doo Review, and then I come out to Loop 700, and I take a right going down this way. And when you're about right over, it's somewhere right around here, you'll see a dog trail. Now, this dog trail is having it so you can go through, and you can take your dog to go use the little boys' room or girls' room. But if you don't have a dog, that's okay, because you can pretend like you're a dog and go down the dog trail as well. If you go down this dog trail, it eventually goes up a small little hill. And when I say small little hill, I mean like maybe just a foot or two. And on top of this, if you follow that to the right or the left, you can eventually come across some railroad tracks. Now, some of these are going to be the planks of wood, and other ones are going to be the actual railroad track, like the actual iron bars. But that is going to be a little leftover piece of some Disney history. Okay, but I think we might be wrapping up tonight's broadcast right there. mainly due to the fact that YouTube is giving me tons of issues tonight. So we're going to wrap this up right here. As always, tonight's episode is sponsored by our Patreon pals. If you're one of our Patreon pals out there in the chat room, I don't know if anyone's in the chat room right now. There could be 100 people in there in the chat room. It said 72 earlier. I don't think we have anyone though. Give us an oh yeah. As always, remember that anything can happen if you let it. Until next time, have a great week, everybody. Bye-bye. Goodbye now. Goodbye. Goodbye now. Goodbye. Goodbye. Are they gone? Are they gone? Oh, good. My cheeks are just killing me. I can't stand this kind of pressure.